Hello and welcome to this CIPD Level 5 5001 assessment review, which is Organisational Performance and Culture in Practice. It's the June 2024 assessment, so it's a brand new assessment that's been released this year. And we're going to have a breakdown of this assessment so that you can feel confident in how you're going to approach this unit, what you need to do. CIPD have done a couple of little tricks within this assessment, but generally it's quite a simple assessment to follow. They've given you some additional guidance instead of giving you some questions that I think can throw you off, but we'll dig into it and we'll go through it so that you can feel confident as you pull together the assessment for this unit and as you go through as you study it. So to start with, we're always going to cover preparation. At the start of your assignment, you're encouraged to plan your assessment work. With your assessor, where appropriate, agree milestones so that they can help monitor your progress. Refer to the indicative content in the unit guide to support your evidence. Pay attention to how your evidence is presented and remember you're working in a people practice team. Ensure the evidence is generated for this assessment remains all your own work. The third point there is remember you're working in a people practice team. There are elements of this questions within this unit where it's asking you to put yourself in this situation. So if you're not currently working in HR, imagine you are. If you're currently working in a different team, imagine you're working in a people practice team. That's the point that it's trying to make here. Now, when we look at the question responses, that's what you've been asked to do. So you've been given a set of questions, and to complete the task, you should provide a well-written response to each question below, marking appropriate use of academic theory and practical examples to expand your response to illustrate the key points. So you have 12 questions to answer in 5001. And they give you a word count of 4,550. I say approximately because you can go 10% over, you can go 10% under. CIPD say if you breach either way, instantaneously refer on the assessment. So never go above 10% plus 4,550. So that's 450. So never really try to never go above 5,000. Try to not go under 4,000. That means you have 380 words per question, or 379 but 380 words per question. And as we break down the questions, we'll notice that actually 380 words to answer a question, whilst it seems like a lot, you start playing and you've got 100 words to answer this, 100 words to answer that, 50 words to answer this. And we'll break it all down so that you can feel confident when you're going into the approach of this unit. But it's not as many words as you would think. So let's go into it. Let's go into the first three questions. And we'll go through some of the tricks that CIPD have within this assessment, some of the things that you're probably not aware of, some of the things if you're watching this for the second or third time, obviously I'll have mentioned it many a time before. But question one: evaluate the advantages and disadvantages of both divisional structure and matrix structure. Within the evaluation, you should include the reasons underpinning each structure. Analyze the extent of which organizational strategy in your organization or an organization in which you're familiar helps to ensure products or services meet customers' needs, and analyze the current impact of interest rates, inflation, and one other external factor on your organization or one which you're familiar, identifying organizational priorities arising from your analysis. Okay, so they seem like really chunky questions, and a couple of them are. But what we're going to do is we're just going to highlight some of the things that you need to be wary of, some of the things you don't need to be wary of, where you need to sort of focus your efforts, and where people normally make mistakes. So straight away, if we look at AC 1.1, evaluate. So evaluate as a verb, looking at strengths and weaknesses. Analyze, looking at strengths and weaknesses, looking at both sides of the argument. CIPD do something which I refer to as a cheeky S, and you'll see that in AC 1.1, which is evaluate the advantages, which is why the S is in plural, and disadvantages. Advantages with a plural means more than one. So you should be looking for more than one advantage, so a minimum of two advantages and two disadvantages of divisional structure and matrix structure. The evaluation should include the reasons underpinning each structure. So if you think about this question, you've got to do the evaluation. So what are the advantages Give me 2 advantages for divisional structure, 2 disadvantages for divisional structure. Give me 2 advantages of matrix structure, 2 disadvantages of matrix structure. And when you give me those advantages, include the reasons that underpin each structure. Like, why do they exist as they do? So this AC 1.1, as you can see, I've broken this question down already into around about 6 or 7 action points. So that 380 words suddenly drops really quickly. Now you should be aiming for a reference and a citation per action point. So per advantage, disadvantage is this, disadvantage is this, this disadvantage is this disadvantage is that. Because if you cite it to an external source, it's not your opinion, you're doing an evaluation. You're looking at external evidence, you're bringing it together, and you're saying, these are the advantages, these are the disadvantages, this is the evidence that says this, and this is why I'm going forward with this response. Hopefully that makes sense. If we look at AC 1.2, analyze the extent of which organizational strategy in your organization or an organization helps to ensure products or services meet customer needs. So a really good example for this, for example, is if you think about how Amazon started as a business. They started by selling books. So their organizational strategy was to get people buying stuff online. Now, when Amazon first launched, no one was going to buy clothes online. No one was going to buy because they wouldn't know if they'd fit properly. No one was going to buy other bits and pieces online. So Amazon started by selling books because everyone knows what a new book looks like. People are more likely to trust that the book comes through in the condition that it is, that they can read it. So it was a really clever product to meet a customer's needs, which is, if you want a book, we can get it delivered to you, we can bring it to your door. And then Love Film came in. If you remember, they started sending DVDs to people's houses, and the thing, and what Amazon's strategy was to get people more and more comfortable with buying things online. And they slowly built it and built it and built it into the Goliath that it is today. And soon you'll be getting deliveries by a drone. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. But analyze the extent your organizational strategy. So if you think about an organization, what are they trying to achieve? So Amazon are not trying to achieve that anymore. That was their original. So way back when they launched, they wanted to get people comfortable with buying things online. And they did that through books, because everyone knows what a book looks like, what it feels like, what a soft, what a hard back book is, what a soft bound book is, and how it actually should feel and look and stuff like that. So it was a really easy purchase. And people weren't used to sending things back or anything like that. So it was a really good way of doing it. Now, if we look at the third question, analyze the current impact of interest rates, inflation, and one other external factor on your organization, or one which is familiar, identifying the organizational priorities arising from your analysis. Really simple way to think about this type of question. Interest rates. If interest rates go up, mortgages go up. If mortgages go up, the cost of renting a building for an organization is going to be more expensive. If inflation goes up, gas and electricity bills are going to be more expensive. So maybe organizations should be thinking about hybrid working, home working, bringing people out of the office. External factor might be hybrid working and being able to set everyone up with the right equipment to be able to work effectively from home, as well as the additional costs that people will have within their own homes for working. So think about what an interest rate could do and how that knocks onto the business. Don't just go, interest rates go up, so therefore the money that we sat in the bank means that we're going to make more as a business, therefore more tax. Whilst that is right, trying to think about how it connects together. And remember, citation, evidence, statistics, data, prove it. Every single one of these questions has so much ability for you to prove your thinking through references, citations, and case studies. Ensure that you're using statistics, ensure you're using citations from articles, not quotes. Quotes waste word count, but citations, this is what it means, this is what we're doing. Don't like word for word quotes in assessments, because you don't know always who's wrote it, if it's gone through AI, and you might get caught in plagiarism check and stuff like that. So it's just take the key data, cite it, always shoot for it from that perspective. Okay, so let's look at the next questions. Questions 4 to 6. In February 2024, Peter Cheese, CEO of CIPD, stated, AI is transforming jobs, careers, and workplaces. People professionals have a role to play, encouraging staff experimentation and rapid learning so that we can reap the benefits and mitigate the risks. Assess to the extent AI is or could be used in your organization. and assess how AI impacts work. Okay, so that feels really chunky, but we'll get to that. Explain Charles Handy's model of organizational culture. Explain David Rock's scarf theory. Assess how employee selection, employee development impacts organizational culture and behavior in your organization, or one you're familiar with. So if we break these questions down, the first thing you'll notice on AC 1.4 is there's a lot of intro text, and the intro text really doesn't impact the question. The question comes down to assess the extent that AI is or could be used in your organization and assess how AI impacts work. So that's what you need to be doing. You need to be thinking, okay, well, what is the extent AI could be used? Now, if you're for example, a lorry driver and you're driving long distance, but you can only drive for so many hours and then it has to come off. So you could build an AI model that tracks it, like a trachiometer and stuff like that. And that could impact the safety and security of people by reporting that back to headquarters so that they've got live feeds. There is some stuff that does that automatically, and could set alarms for drivers as to when they can set off and when they need to brake, how it impacts work. So if, for example, you were to a recruitment agency, could you automate everything? Does that impact work? Well, yes, because there's no jobs, but would people use the service? Because, if you're looking for a job, you want to speak to a person. And so if you're looking at the impact can be positive, impact can be negative. How AI impacts work. Is it a positive? Is it a negative? Again, references, citations. There's a lot of research happening right now. There's a lot of really interesting stuff going on right now in terms of AI research and impact. Make sure that you're citing references for every point that you're trying to make. This is a really clean question. Explain Charles Handy's model of organizational culture. Explain David Rock's scarf theory. So you have 380 words. Really simple. 200 words for Charles Handy's model, 200 words for David Rock's scarf theory. Question answered. As long as you explain them, references and citations are still required when you're explaining something, because if you've misunderstood it, and you can find them on 8Minds, you can find both of these have their own websites with information on, so you can find the information wherever you need it. So again, really simple question, AC 2.1, which is just explain the model, explain the theory. Assess how employee selection or employee development impacts organizational culture and behavior in your organization. Now, where people normally miss this is they assess how employee selection and employee development impacts organizational culture. You only have to pick one. You don't have to do both on AC 2.2. Assess how employee selection impacts organizational culture and behavior. So again, employee selection when it comes to recruitment. Do you recruit in a new leader? Do you develop your own leaders? How does that build a culture? How does that build behaviors? Do people want to progress within your organization? Are you a stopgap? Are you a career hub? How does your employee selection or employee development, do you train? Do you bring people through? How does it impact the culture and behavior? So this is where you need to assess your current. Find some evidence, find some data that backs up your theory and your approach. This is why we do it. This is the benefit of why we do it. This is how it could benefit the organization as a whole. So you will still need citations and references for this, but think about it from your organizational perspective and how it could impact you in a positive way. Now, if you are studying with HRC Online, you'll be finding that as you're going through this, we've got a video per AC, and we call it CIPD bite size, where we break down the question, we break down the verb, we break it into action points. And with CIPD bite size, what we also do is give you a bit of an analogy in a different way, to sort of rephrase the question so that you can try to think about it from a different perspective, whether you be a chef, a pirate, or a farmer in some of the instances. So CIPD bite size is short 10 to 15 minute videos where we break down every single AC into graphic detail. If you are enrolled with us, obviously this comes directly free with your course. If you're studying with someone else, you are able to purchase, you will soon will be able to purchase bite size. If you're watching this in October, plus probably be able to buy it in October, but CIPD bite size will be selling our unique approach to assessments against every single AC. So if you are struggling, if you do get a refer, if you do get something that comes back to you like, I don't understand how I've referred on this, CIPD bite-sized video can help you sort of improve that. One of the things that CIPD have changed recently for centres is the level of feedback that you would now get has been changed. So previously, whether you got a 4, which is a high pass, a 3, a pass, a 2, a low pass, or a 1, which is a refer on any question, centres would have to give you developmental feedback to try and get you up to a 4. That's recently been removed in June, July 2024, so that centres don't have to give you any other feedback apart from developmental feedback when you score a 1. Now, at HSC Online, we still give full feedback. We still give you what you've done well, what you could do to improve, how you've addressed the verb. But if you are struggling because you're just getting these 2s, 3s, and you're like, how do I improve? You can watch CIPD Bite Size. It'll break down the question. It'll show you what you should be doing. It'll be pulling in all the different sources that you should be approaching it. And it'll probably give you a good indication about, okay, I've misunderstood this. I've not done this properly. I need to do that more as I go through the qualification. And they'll be available per AC, or you could be able to buy them as a bunch, but probably coming around about October in 2024, if you're looking at doing CIPD Bite Size. Anyway, back to the questions. 7 to 9. These are a couple of questions where CIPD have really thrown a lot of information at, but again, we're going to simplify these questions for you. An organization is planning to change its change relating to hybrid working. Many employees moved to home working during COVID. Whilst this approach worked well at the time, the organizations now want employees to work at least 2 days a week on site. Explain how Kotter's approach to managing change could be used successfully to implement this change. That's AC 2.3. AC 2.4 is using Kubler-Ross's change curve, discuss how change is experienced. And then 2.5, this will throw a lot of people. I can already see this a mile away because there's so much numbers thrown into this. But CIPD's Health and Wellbeing Survey of 2023 found that the percentage of organizations that have a standalone wellbeing strategy has risen from 40% in 2018 to 53% in 2023. Although the percentage has increased, it means that 47% of organizations do not have a standalone wellbeing strategy. Assess the importance of wellbeing at work and assess how good work could impact wellbeing. Whew, that was a long one. So, first thing we're going to do, AC 2.3, let's simplify this question. Explain how Kotter's approach to managing change could be used to successfully implement this change. Kotter's is a change management approach. It's change management theory. So you just need to look up Kotter's 8-stage theory and explain how managing change, how that theory could help you successfully implement change. Find some case studies about people that have used it. Find some evidence about people that have done it. Answer the question. Using Kubler-Ross's change curve, discuss how change is experienced. So again, find Kubler-Ross's change curve, find some references that explain how it works, find some case studies about how people have experienced that change. 2.5, assess the importance of well-being at work and assess how good work could impact well-being. So what is the importance of well-being at work? Well, you've got that CIPD Health and Wellbeing Survey. So you've got the importance of wellbeing at work. You've got a load of information in there. They've thrown some data at you, but there's a lot in that survey. Assess how good work could impact wellbeing. Again, there is so much evidence in that survey. So CIPD have given you everything you need to answer that question. So much case study, so much data, so much statistical information. Actually, when you're assessing the importance of wellbeing at work, you'll have evidence. You'll have evidence for references and citations. When you assess how good work can impact wellbeing, you will have evidence, you will have references and citations. And that's just how they've put this question together. So there's a lot of information, but actually when you just smash the question down into its basic approach, what you're looking for is it, if we go through the 3, explain Kotter's approach and how it could be used. Explain Kubler-Ross's change curve and how it's experienced. Explain the importance of wellbeing at work and how it could impact well-being, and they've given you the survey to look at from 2023. That's how you approach 7 to 9. We're in our final 3 questions. So if you made it this far, well done. But provide a brief overview of the employee lifecycle and discuss people practice roles at the recruitment, development, and separation stages of life cycle. This is a chunky question. You might not look at it, but it is. Analyze how people practice supports organizational strategy through vertical integration and how people practice supports wider strategy through horizontal integration, which is 3.2. And then an organization is planning to introduce a 4-day working week. Discuss the processes the people function could use to consult and engage with its managers to understand the needs of moving from a 4 to a 5-day week. Now, again, this questions are quite long, but actually, when you get into the crux of it, it's a relatively simple question. It just feels like a big deal because people go, whoa, 4 to 5 days. It's designed to tap into that sort of emotional response. So, um, why is this a chunky one? Provide a brief overview of the employee life cycle. So you explain what the employee life cycle is. Now discuss people practice roles at recruitment, development, and separation stages of the life cycle. Now, what they mean by that is when someone recruits you, so the recruitment consultant, development, learning and development, separation is offboarding, exit surveys, things like that. It feels more um corporate to say recruitment, development, separation, but it is recruitment, training, and offboarding. Discuss people practice roles, what we do, how you do it. Again, CIPD have got fact sheets on every single one of these, so I would go to those as a priority. But it's a relatively simple question. It's just a chunky question, so you need to ensure you've got some words in the bank, because if you think about it, you're going to explain the employee life cycle, 100 words. Discuss people practice roles, recruitment, 100, development, 100, separation, 100 as a minimum. And if you're going to put references, citations, and you're going to discuss, which means you're going to look at it from more than one angle, you're only playing at 50 words per angle there. So again, if you can save some words, AC 3.1 is one that needs a bit of words. Analyze how people practice supports organizational strategy through vertical integration and how it's. Now, I'm not going to rant about this. I've ranted about this on something else, which is vertical integration, how it supports wider people practice through horizontal integration. It is just how you go up and down the chain and how you go out to other managers. So if you think about this, the breadth of middle managers, and then you've got senior managers and junior staff, vertical, horizontal. But the thing that gets me with this is people should be people. It kind of doesn't matter where you are. And people practice strategy should benefit everyone equally. So I kind of get what they're doing, but I'm not a fan of this question generally. But you have to answer it because you're studying, so tough. Analyze how people practice supports organizational strategy. So how do you support organizational strategy? If it is to grow, if it is to invest, if it is to train, if it is to become the best, how do you do that? Through vertical integration. So how do you do it up and down the entire organization? And how do people practice support wider people's strategies? So how do you ensure new managers become good managers? How do you ensure good leaders become great leaders? How do you work across different functions of an organization to ensure that that happens? Now, the third question is discuss the process for people function and how it could be used to consult and engage with managers and employees to understand their needs when moving from a 4-day to a 5-day week. I would probably, do you know what? You could probably drop half of that last line, which is discuss the processes for people function could be used to consult and engage with managers and employees to understand their needs. You've been given a story, you've been given a context, which is a 4 to 5-day week. But in truth, that's what discuss the processes people function could use to consult with managers and employees to understand their needs. Consult and engage, doing the same thing. So how do you get everyone's feedback on going from a 5-day week to a 4-day week? Do you do focus groups? Do you do survey? Do you do telephone calls? Do you do finding? Do you do sort of like listening sessions? Like, how are you going to approach that? Evidence, citations, reference, everything in this section needs evidence, reference in the citation. So how do you approach that conversation? How do you seek out each of those answers? That's what this question is asking you to do. Now, hopefully, now you've got a plan for each of the questions. But if you don't, coming in October 2024, if this is post October, already out, CIPD Bite Size, where we do a video per AC, where we break the question down into its verb, into action points, so that you can break down your word count even further. We give you some reading that we would recommend that you go, which is a lot of what you will hear me say on that is CIPD loves CIPD, because it does. Where we point you to some CIPD resources that will help you. Remember, if you're studying CIPD, you need to be CIPD registered anyway, so you have access to all this information. And then we will give you an analogy, we'll give you a bit of a fictitious scenario, so you can try and understand the question from a different perspective, so that you really have a plan and you know what you're doing. This is sold per AC. It is also sold for assessment units, and is something that is available to learners for free if you're studying with HRC Online, but is also going to be made available to general public around about October time, once we've finished all that. Absolutely best of luck with 5CO01. It is a relatively simple unit, as long as you think all the way through, I need to prove it, I need to prove it, I need to prove it. Here's some data, here's a reference and citation, here's more case studies and stuff like that. As long as you're constantly proving your point, you will get through this unit. Absolutely best of luck. If you have got any questions, you can post them under this video. Obviously, we make these videos publicly available to everyone. If there's anything you need, get in touch. We're more than happy to help. Take care. We'll speak to you soon.